We chose Pine Hollow because it wasn't popular. That should have been our first warning. Most people want campgrounds with marked trails, restrooms, signal towers, and ranger stations within walking distance. Pine Hollow had none of that. It wasn't even labeled properly on most maps, just a green stretch between two faded contour lines, with a thin blue thread marking a creek that sometimes existed and sometimes didn't. To us, that meant peace. We were four friends looking to disconnect. No phones, no work emails, no noise except wind through trees and water over stone. Just 3 nights, deep woods, 1 tent each, shared fire. I remember standing at the trailhead, reading the weathered wooden sign. Pine Hollow. No facilities. Camp at your own risk. Someone had scratched something underneath with a knife. The trees don't sleep. We laughed. The hike-in took longer than expected. The trail narrowed quickly, swallowed by brush and roots. Pines crowded close, their trunks tall and straight, packed so tightly that sunlight barely touched the forest floor. The air felt cooler beneath the canopy, damp and heavy, carrying the scent of moss and rot. About an hour in, we lost cell service completely. Another hour later, the trail simply ended. Not abruptly. It just thinned until it was indistinguishable from the forest itself. "This is it," Mark said, checking his compass. "Creek should be just east." We found water, flat ground, and enough open space to set camp. Everything seemed fine. Normal. But the forest was quiet in a way that felt intentional. No birds. No insects. Just wind moving high above us. Never at ground level. That first night was easy. We ate, joked, drank a little. The fire cracked and popped, sending sparks up into branches that swallowed the light instantly. Beyond the ring of firelight, the woods were absolute black. Not darkness. Blackness. I noticed it when I stood to pee. My headlamp illuminated tree trunks like sudden walls, appearing far closer than expected. The forest didn't feel expansive. It felt crowded. When I turned off the lamp, the dark pressed in immediately. I slept lightly, but I slept. The second day, things started to feel off. The creek flowed differently. I don't mean direction. I mean sound. Water should be constant, predictable. But the creek's rhythm changed. Sometimes it rushed loudly. Sometimes it went nearly silent, even though the flow looked the same. At one point, Sarah frowned and said, "Does it sound like footsteps to you?" None of us answered. That night, the forest came alive. Branches creaked. Leaves shifted without wind. Somewhere deep in the trees, something moved, slowly, deliberately, circling the campsite. Not an animal. Animals move with purpose. Hunger. Fear. This felt curious. Observing. I woke sometime after midnight. The fire had burned low, glowing embers barely illuminating the campsite. The trees stood motionless, tall and endless, like pillars holding up the sky. And then I heard it. Breathing. Not close. Not loud. But steady. Slow. Inhale. Exhale. I held my breath. The sound continued. It wasn't coming from one place. It came from everywhere at once, layered and overlapping, as if the forest itself was breathing. When I finally exhaled, the sound changed. It matched me. I didn't wake anyone. I told myself it was wind. Temperature shifts. Pine needles rubbing together. Still, I didn't sleep again. The third day, Mark was gone. His tent stood open, sleeping bag untouched. His boots were missing. We searched immediately, shouting his name until our voices echoed strangely, bouncing back distorted, delayed. We found his footprints. They led into the trees. And then stopped. Not faded. Not scattered. Stopped. As if he'd been lifted straight up. "That's not possible," Sarah whispered. The forest around us felt tighter than before. Trees leaned inward slightly, branches creaking as though adjusting their weight. We decided to leave. Immediately. We packed fast. Too fast. In our rush, we didn't notice the trail didn't reappear where it should have. We walked east, then south, then west. Every direction led us deeper into Pine Hollow. The forest never changed. Same trees, same moss, same shadows. At one point, I saw our campsite again. The fire pit cold. The tents still standing. Untouched. We hadn't circled. We'd been returned. Night fell quickly. Too quickly. We set a fire again, more for sanity than warmth. That's when Sarah started whispering. "I hear them," she said. "Hear who?" I asked. She didn't answer. She stared into the trees, eyes wide, mouth trembling. "They're standing still," she whispered. "They don't like when we move." The sounds began shortly after. Footsteps. Not around us. Above us. Branches creaked as weight shifted high in the canopy. Something moved from tree to tree without disturbing leaves. No animal does that. Something leaned down. Too tall. Too thin. I caught a glimpse of it against the stars, a shape darker than the darkness, limbs wrong, bending where joints shouldn't exist. It mimicked us. When Sarah cried, it tilted its head. When I stood, it straightened. When we fell silent, it stopped moving entirely. The forest was learning. That's when the voices began. They sounded like Mark, calling from just beyond the firelight. "Guys! Hey, where'd you go?" Sarah stood up before I could stop her. The fire flared violently, sparks shooting upward, and the forest exhaled in one long, collective sound. The voices stopped. Sarah didn't sit back down. She walked into the trees, and the trees opened for her. Branches parted without breaking. Darkness swallowed her whole. No scream. No struggle. Just silence. I was alone. The fire burned low again, as if starved. I didn't move. I didn't breathe loudly. I remembered the carving on the sign. The trees don't sleep. They watch. They learn. They wait. At some point, exhaustion took me. That's when I dreamed. I dreamed I was underground, roots wrapped around my chest, my mouth filled with soil. Above me, I could hear footsteps, voices, campers arriving, laughing, unaware. Morning came. The forest looked normal again. Too normal. No signs of struggle. No footprints. Just trees. Endless trees. I don't remember leaving Pine Hollow. I don't remember finding the trail. I only remember stepping out of the woods and collapsing onto gravel, lungs burning, hands shaking. Search teams never found Mark or Sarah. They said animals probably got them. I didn't argue. I don't camp anymore. I don't hike off marked trails. And when I hear wind move through trees at night, slow, steady, rhythmic, I hold my breath. Because sometimes, the forest breathes back.